Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of our daily news program, coming up shortly. The candidates for the forthcoming presidential elections intensify their meetings and rallies to explain the borderlines of their programs and convince the electorate. Ahead of the voting operation, the Bobigny Center in France is visited by the ANI representatives to take stock of the situation. A serious drift of the Makhzen regime, the representative of which at the TICAD meeting attacks the Sahrawi ambassador. And the Moroccan Progressive Movement denounces the French position, siding with the Makhzen regime regarding Western Sahara. Welcome back. First off, the electoral campaign is getting tougher as the three candidates intensify their meetings and rallies across the national territory to explain the borderlines of their programs, wishing to convince the electorate to massively turn out and to vote for them on September 7th. More details in this roundup with our specialist, Melissa Kabash.
From Sétif, candidate Awshish Youssef conveyed the main message. According to him, everyone has to assume his responsibilities and accomplish their electoral duty next September the 7th by voting for his program Ru'ya, considering it a program devoted to youth development and reform, adding that his message is destined to workers, students, unemployed, housewives, and all segments of society who must make their voice heard before being too late, indicating that he's fulfilled his duty in front of the entire Algerian people by taking part in these presidential elections, despite the hindrances he'd faced, and he is well aware of the current social, political, and economic situation. Other sectors were revoked by candidate, namely higher education, health, and housing, pledging to increase the budgets depending on the strategic importance of each sector. Candidate Tebboune campaign manager Ibrahim Murad harrowed for Sidi Bel Abbas to showcase the commitments, promises, and expectations of his candidate when it comes to improving the daily life of citizens and the importance he grants to young people, confirming from C that candidate Tebboune considers them as a wealth, which is why he created the Higher Council of Youth and granted allowances, stressing that his entire program aims at increasing the purchasing power of citizens. Moving on to Tlemcen, where he indicated the attempts made to weaken the unity of Algerian people, thanking the People's National Army for their efforts to thwart these attempts. And from Ain Timouchent, Murad met with fishermen and shared the interest attached by his candidate to all professional categories, calling them to boost the national economy as candidate Tebboune will further improve the situation. With all the worldwide changes, the upcoming political event is of immense importance, stated candidate Hassani Sharif Abdel Ali during his rally held in Tlemcen, indicating how important our border regions, including Tlemcen, and how important it is to maintain the security of these regions, as the People's National Army is indeed working day and night to safeguard our borders and nation, stressing that these efforts are not enough, especially with the ongoing attempts meant to destabilize our country in different domains, adding that as a state, they must work out adequate development strategies in border regions to defend our borders in different fields that will make the inhabitants of these regions an important asset to protect our country, pointing out that the strategy is in fact one of the 62 commitments adopted by its program, calling on everyone to vote massively on September the 7th.
In a related topic, all Algerian nationals settled abroad are called upon to vote on September 7th. All human and material resources are mobilized for the smooth running of this major event. A case in point, Bobigny in France, where ANI members toured the different polling centers and inquired about the preparations ahead of the D-Day. Report by our correspondent in France, Afaf Belhouchat, taken up by Laetitia Silqawi.
2 days ahead of the long-awaited day for Algerians home and abroad, the upcoming presidential elections. After Paris, Nanterre and Créteil, the inspection delegation of ANI is now in Bobigny to inspect the measures put in place to ensure the smooth running of the operation on the D-Day.
An inventory has been made by the Council and the delegate Annie to Bobigny. We had an in-depth discussion where many questions were brought up on laws and logistics and on the organization of the voting operation. We concluded that the job done by the entire team was perfect and we expect a high turnout.
Unlike the other consulates in Ile-de-France, here one voting center will gather all of the offices for a good reason.
Here in Bobigny, we have one constituency, so we opted for one center with 15 offices. It is the smallest constituency, but the densest.
Indeed, unlike the Algerian consulate in Bobigny that covers one constituency, the one in Pontoise that covers 7 and needs a more complex system. 4 centers and 15 voting offices will be put in place, receiving around 60,000 voters. To make the process easier, the General Consulate in Pontoise relies on QR codes that will allow the voter to find a suitable voting office for them based on their residence.
Taking into consideration the distance between Cergy-Pontoise and the furthest point is around 400 kilometers, the work done here is praiseworthy and deserves to be highlighted, notably the applications that makes finding voting offices much easier.
In the same setting, the ANI delegation even supervised the simulation process of the D-Day and held talks with the volunteers.
Still with our nationals abroad who attach a paramount importance to these elections in consolidating Algeria's positive image internationally. Let's have a listen to some of them.
The presidential elections are decisive for Algeria's position at the international level, given that Algeria is a republic with an important state for the president. In fact, they represent Algeria's image internationally.
Cette place importante, c'est l'image du pays à l'échelle internationale.
Algérien en lait.
I'm solely Algerian forever. I'm concerned by these elections which take place in good conditions with freedom of speech, equal opportunities and means. We want to consolidate our country's leading role in the Arab and Muslim world.
Pour moi, chaque jeune né en Algérie ou en France.
For me, each young Algerian born in Algeria or in France should be proud of Algeria, standing for martyrs. Voting is duty and a right for all citizens.
In a different context, the Gaza Strip is now an epicenter of a severe humanitarian catastrophe where famine and a collapsed healthcare system are dramatically increasing the risk of epidemics, particularly polio, which is a highly infectious disease. And in a desperate attempt to escape relentless Zionist bombardments, Palestinians are now fleeing to coastal areas where they face insanitary and harsh conditions, struggling to survive. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Karim Khan, confirmed that the court has jurisdiction to investigate Zionist officials and has urgently requested the issuance of 2 arrest warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant. In court documents released yesterday, Khan pressed the judges handling the warrants to act swiftly, stressing that any unjustified delay in these proceedings adversely affect the rights of the victims. And once again, the Makhzen regime is jolted by a thuggish behavior of their representative during the TICAD meeting, bringing Africa to Japan. The Sahrawi representative was attacked by a member of the Moroccan delegation, sparking a tidal wave of indignation. More insights in this concise report.
A serious and umpteenth drift for the Makhzen regime during the preparatory meeting of the Tokyo International Summit on Development in Africa, TICAD, and Japan held in Tokyo. This act is not only an individual reaction of the Moroccan delegation, but it stands for a failure sustained, notably after insulting the Sahara ambassador and the African diplomats who tried to protect the Sahara representative. This attitude denotes the setback of the Moroccan occupier to prevent the Sahara delegation to take part in the TICAD meetings following the host country's decision to respect the will of the African Union, rejecting the exclusion of any member to take part in such meetings. This behavior was strongly denounced by the Sahrawi diplomat, deeming it as thuggish. It is for him a telling evidence of Morocco's failure in dealing with this fair cause, always present in such fora, despite the Moroccan attempts to exclude the Sahrawi presence. For the Sahrawis, this attitude, not the first of the kind, is an empty attempt to prevent the Sahrawis' presence in TICAD meetings, another desperate attempt and headlong move that might have negative ramifications on the Makhzen.
Reacting to Paris' siding with the Makhzen regime, the Moroccan Progressive Movement expressed strong indignation of this move, accusing France of betraying the principles of international law and supporting colonization. Letizia Sedqawi reports.
The latest decision of France to support the alleged autonomy plan put forward by Al-Makhzen for Western Sahara is still sparking denunciation even by the Moroccan people. By supporting the Makhzen regime, Paris betrays the fundamental principles of international law and aligns itself with its ancient status as a colonizing country. This position is perceived as an active complicity in the perpetration of the occupation and is largely rejected by the Moroccan people, including those affiliated with the progressive movement.
This position represents an unjustified bias in favor of the Moroccan regime at the expense of the Sahrawi people to self-determination, which constitutes a flagrant step backward, violating the principles of justice and international legitimacy that France pretends to defend. This reversal is linked directly with the illicit agreements between the French government and the Moroccan monarchy, which prove that the Moroccan government is willing to use the resources of the Moroccan people to gain international support for its occupation.
Cela démontre que le régime est prêt à sacrifier les intérêts de son propre peuple pour garantir une couverture internationale à son.
The criticism stems from the fact that the autonomy plan supported by Paris does not respond to the aspirations of the Sahrawis aspiring for self-determination. The Moroccan Progressive Movement that defends the principles of justice and freedom firmly rejects this initiative, adding that it goes against universal values of human rights and reiterate their support to the Sahrawi people.
We at the Moroccan Progressive Movement reiterate our utter support and solidarity with the Sahrawi people and their fair fight for independence and self-determination. We affirm that this is a sacred, non-negotiable, inalienable right. We call on the international community to stand with justice and people's right to independence against imperialism. We consider this French position as a step backward in terms of humanitarian rights for international law.
The Moroccan Progressive Movement strongly denounced the compliance policy with the Makhzen regime, affirming that the occupation of Western Sahara by Morocco hinders the regional stability and development. The movement expressed total solidarity with the oppressed Sahrawi people, whose natural resources are being exploited by Al-Makhzen.
And with that, our today's news edition comes to a close. Thank you so much for tuning in.